So in this panel, we'll talk about the range of the future vehicles. And I want to start it with telling you about a survey we did last year for the Israeli public about the electric vehicles. And we discovered that, of course, the showstopper for an electric vehicle, the number one reason not that people are not buying them is the charging stations and essentially the question of the range of the vehicle. So this is, of course, one of the top issues. And then also another question we asked was, what is the minimum range that you think you could survive with for an electric car? And you will be surprised to find that in Israel it was on average 350 kilometers, which is very modest target. I think we're very close to it already today. I'm not sure it's true. This is what people said at the time, about a year and a half ago. So I will first ask each of the panelists here to present themselves very briefly in a couple minutes, and then I will ask a few questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Gideon, for the kind introduction. My name is Lorenzo Rambaldi. I'm leading e-mobility projects in Enelix, and happy to be here to explain what Enelix is doing and giving our vision on e-mobility.
Good afternoon, Rob Campbell with Ballard Power. We specialize in fuel cell technology for the last 40 years, and we can provide your range extender.
Hi everyone, I'm Ron Price. I'm the co-founder and CEO of IRP. We develop a very efficient and cost-effective electric powertrain for e-mobility.
Hans Weckers, I'm working for a company called VDL Bus & Coach. We're a bus and coach manufacturer from the Netherlands, Europe. Last 3 years we've been a market leader in electrical city buses in Western Europe. We have around 500 on the road today. By the end of the year we'll be around 1,000, and together they've driven for around 50 million kilometers.
Good afternoon everybody, my name is Pierpaolo Biffali. I'm in charge of powertrain research and development at FPT Industrial. We deliver powertrain solutions for trucks, commercial vehicles, agricultural machine, construction equipment, marine, power generation, with a range from 40 kilowatt to 1 megawatt. And of course, we power the vehicles of our mother company, CNH Industrial, operating with the brands of Iveco, Case, New Holland.
Thank you. So after introducing everyone and putting the big question of the range as our top... so after introducing everyone and putting the question of the range as the most important question for the electric vehicles, I would like to start with the question of how do you think an extended range can be achieved? I will just start with Moran, maybe.
From our perspective, it's the matter of motor efficiency. While peak efficiency is very, very high today in electric motors, it can reach over 95%. The big problem is the average efficiency. So in a driving platform, the average efficiency drops as the motor goes away from its optimal point of performance. And our challenge is to increase the range by improving the efficiency of the motor throughout a wide range of speeds.
What is the average efficiency today?
Today, average numbers can be around 75 to 85%, and our challenge is to increase this number towards the 90s.
Into the 90s? Yeah. And your engine, what does it do now?
Yeah, we reached that number already on several platforms.
Okay, so that gives us about 15% improvement.
Yes, which can be translated to either range extending of 15% or cost reduction of the battery pack, which is the biggest cost driver today in any mobile platform powered by electric system, for a given range. If you are happy with the range, you can save cost.
Okay, so maybe then 15%?
I'll do my best. So we have to remember that what we're talking about here is our zero-emission vehicles. So we achieve zero-emission vehicles with a combination of batteries, and in this case with a range extender. What we would provide is a fuel cell that would then charge the batteries to give them the extra range from a fuel storage source on the vehicle. So what we specialize is doing simulations and optimizing the combination of the fuel cell with the battery packs and providing, based on the application, an optimized solution. And through doing that, we can actually increase the overall range and potentially simplify the vehicle. And based on each customer's requirements, that may be a larger fuel cell and a smaller battery pack, or the opposite. So we adapt to the application and provide an optimized solution to give the best economics.
Thank you. Lorenzo, go ahead.
Thank you. I think that the answer depends by if we be thinking short, medium, or long term. Because I believe that in short term, probably everyone in this room knows that currently the average range of electric vehicles is enough for most of the user. But I'm also an electric driver, so I understand. I also feel myself the range anxiety. So I'm sure that we need to give a more comfortable way to charge the electric vehicles for the user. I have to say that probably in the short term, we could improve the customer experience. For example, providing a software application that could allow the communication between vehicles, charging station, and application in order that so you can, for example, have a AV trip planning before, saying if you need to reach your office, you don't need to charge, but if you need to go to, let me say, a little bit far from your home, probably you need. And we can help the customers to say, hey, yes, you can charge here, and then meanwhile you can take a coffee. In the medium term, I think that there is a big evolution of the energy density on the battery. That is something that comes from the consumer electronics that nobody can stop, of course, fortunately. And there will be new technologies that will be commercial in the medium term. In the long term, I believe a lot in, for example, in solid-state batteries that will give better performance in terms of efficiency, in terms of energy density, in terms of safety.
And so currently you're working mainly on the software to manage.
As Enel, of course, we are not a battery maker. We don't make batteries. So what we can do is to work together with OEM to provide also some feedback. But at the same time, yes, we work more on the software than on the hardware because we are a software company.
Yes. Okay, Paolo, maybe you continue.
Yes, I think there will be no unique solution to extend the range and the autonomy of a battery electric vehicle. I think that for heavy commercial application demanding very high level of energy with 1,000 kilometers to be run, hydrogen with fuel cell is the right option that we are working on. But in the middle range of operating condition, I call that jungle of the hybrid, there are such a high number of possible architecture and configuration that can meet requirements and expectation of the customers that a careful study of the application and the mission should drive the selection of the right architecture for a range extender. In general, let me comment, our typical customers are professional customers. They do like green and they are eco-friendly, but they can hardly accept somehow the burden of technology that can impact their daily operation and competitiveness. So we have to think about solutions that can cope with the performances and expectation of the operating condition of the vehicles.
And as a company, you currently do not make a choice. You work on all possible solutions.
Not on all possible solutions. We think that powertrain electrification can enable, on one side, full electric and zero emission solution like hydrogen fuel cell, but also complement typical or more typical combustion engine solution that can also be considered still as a range extender for some application.
Okay, and Hans, as a user, what do you think the future solution is?
Well, to be honest, I was in Brussels last week. There we had the Bus World Exhibition, which in our industry is, I would say, the most important exhibition that we have. And each time I have a few minutes between into meetings, I like to go out and walk to the front of the stand and have a look at the people who are actually taking a look at our products. And the first question they always ask me is this an electrical bus? Which, of course, I will confirm. And then the second question is, what kind of range does it have? So range is, I would say, a real topic in the public transport industry. We have the big benefit that the product that we are selling is in an environment which is very plannable, is very dependable, so we know what the bus is doing. But the reaction I always give to the people who are asking me this question is I would say, a very good example that we have. It actually showed it yesterday during the e-bus panel here at the summit. We have 100 articulated buses running around Schiphol, which is the airport in the Netherlands. That's a 24/7 service. I showed an example yesterday of a bus which drove for almost 3,000 kilometers without coming back into the depot. And we do this by applying fast charging technology, which allows the bus to be recharged in 20 minutes. And with this 20 minutes, you are able to combine the charging moment during the day with some other significant moment in your planning, for instance, a break for the driver or a driver change. And then the whole discussion about range becomes less intense. Yeah? So we try to find solutions which allow our customers to cope with this range anxiety that they have and find solutions that are actually applicable in daily practice.
And so where was that, the 3,000 kilometers, where was that done?
In Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, I mentioned that there are other solutions that are not represented here. For example, and I'm not going to count them all, but the ones that I'm thinking right now, there is the option, of course, to charge from the road. There's a company we support here in Israel, Electrion. And there is also the traditional range extender with regular combustion engine to extend the range. With software management, so there are a lot of options for the short term, like you mentioned, and for the long term as well. So we have a lot of options on the table, and the question is, of course, which one would be the winning one, but not, let me pose the question a little differently. What will determine actually the winning or the dominant solution if there are several ones? For example, is it going to be the best technology? Is it going to be the one first on the market? Is it going to be the one that we are most used to because that's what we do today? What are the factors that are important for the people who develop the technology to take into account when they actually try to push their technologies? Okay, we start now.
I think if I look from my public transport perspective, that the name of the game is total cost of ownership. So it all depends on what type of operation that you have, and try to find the right solution which gives you the profitability that the customer is looking for. And to be honest, at this moment in time, electrical buses are still not at the same level as the former diesel buses, but they are getting there. And especially if you go into operations where you drive a lot of kilometers per day or per year, you see that the electrical buses are actually pretty close. And to decide which solution is the right one, that's different from operation to operation. What you're mentioning, being
So
used to.
would you say that actually the first one to offer you most economical solution is the one you will take?
I would say yes.
Basically, yes. Okay, one maybe?
So from our perspective as a component manufacturer, we look, we're not that privileged to look at the total cost of ownership, but we have to be competitive also at the BOM cost, which is more challenging. And I think we have a reference of decades of an expectation regarding vehicle BOM cost with internal combustion engines, and with cleaner energy solutions we have to achieve the same level of cost to performance ratios in calculating the BOM cost of the vehicle. So I think this is our challenge, and we also are now opening a new range of vehicles for urban mobility, for micromobility solutions. I think there the decision is not a comparison to traditional solutions, but there are new ways for mobility. And of course, all of those solutions would not have been achieved with traditional powertrain solutions. So I think for light mobility, for last mile mobility, it is quite obvious that electrification is the main way.
But again, do we already have a solution, you think, for the micromobility?
Yes.
Basically, yes. But you're trying to improve it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rob?
and I
No,
think
sorry.
for very large distances, there is a trade-off between economy and sustainability, and 100% electric for very large vehicles like industrial vehicles may not be the optimal solution, and there is a wide range of hybrid solutions that will dominate.
We'll see. Rob?
Thank you. So I agree with Hans to focus on total cost of ownership, but we also have to look at the business models of the end customers. So if it's a trucking application, it may not be possible to have the the charging infrastructure where you want it. So there may be some adjustments that you have to take into consideration. I would also highlight that in the bigger picture, we have to look at the source of the charging. Is it total, true, zero emission, or are we just pushing the problem somewhere else in the electrical grid? And the ultimate solution is to increase the zero emission energy production from renewable energies and have that go into the network as best as possible. And I believe that will be through a variety of solutions, some of them with battery only, being charged from renewable sources, some of them with range extenders, and potentially some of them with hybridized fuel cell dominant systems using hydrogen produced from clean energy. So it'll be a variety, but at the end of the day, customers look to what they need to do to get their business done, and that typically translates to total cost of ownership.
Good. Lorenzo?
I think one of the key factors is the time. So the good news here is that nobody's talking about diesel or other technology like the diesel, and everybody agrees here that clean technologies are the future, and that's very good news. At the same time, I think that the resources are a little bit limited, so it means that also the R&D investment, I think, should be put to the closest solution, because everyone is here to fight climate change. And to fight climate change, I think that also the technology and the penetration of the technology should be massive. And also this massive penetration should happen as soon as possible. This is why I think that the time needed to develop new solution or to use existing better maybe is a fundamental aspect to be considered.
Mm-hmm. Good, Paolo.
I think that one of the main driver will be the availability of renewable sources, CO2 neutral. Whatever is electricity or biofuel, this is something that, according to the availability and the affordability of those kind of energy vectors, will find a solution for a powertrain and power source to improve air quality, but also to fight against the climate change, as maybe is one of the most urgent achievement, and challenges that we have to face and we have the responsibility to face.
I want to maybe I'll ping pong again this question. I personally think the timing is critical, like Lorenzo said, and Hans also mentioned it, because once we saw on the PV market, for example, that the industrialization is the #1 issue. We got lower cost because of the industrialization, and if there is a solution that is first, it will get industrialized, and it will be very difficult for the solutions coming later to compete when there is already a dominant solution. And for that matter, yeah, so timing is very, very important. I would like to know sort of your opinion on this matter. If anyone wants to say something about this.
I think you're bringing up a very good point. It's the case that if certain technology is in the market first, that it will have a good chance of being the dominant technology in the market. However, what we also see is that, again, coming back to the total cost of ownership, if you have better solutions available, the market is willing to look into them. And something I discuss quite regularly with my customers is that we have to be aware about where we are in the maturity of the product. And if we look at electrical buses, we're, I would say, in the infancy. So if you're in the infancy and you're buying the product, you should be aware of the fact that the product might change in the future, and you should position yourself to be flexible and to go for the better technology once it's available.
Paolo, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think that the way to accelerate the maturity of the new technologies is to bring new technology as a value for the customer experience. Once that the customer recognizes that the technology is providing a benefit in terms of performances, in terms of daily operating condition, this is something that will dramatically boost the penetration of the new technologies.
Okay, so let me ask maybe the final question here. We are looking at this issue of the range from the perspective of the current user, really. We're using, we know we're using our vehicles in a specific way. We are used to go to the gas station, fill up, and we don't want to go to the gas station again in a few hours. We want the longest range possible. But at the same time of the electrification revolution, we are having the smart mobility revolution in parallel. So it is very likely that we will see transportation as a service as the dominant mode for transportation in the future. And the question is whether we are actually considering this issue in the right way, in the way that it will be considered in 3 or 5 years from now. Whether we are not actually stuck in the question from the old perspective. For example, is the range going to be as important as today when we have a fleet of vehicles that's managed by a company and it's offering it as a service? Is it going to be more important to run the vehicles in the fleet all the time and you don't want to lose any minute of the machine? Yeah, so you want the longest range to be even more critical, or maybe it will be less critical because I know how to manage my fleet. I have a large fleet. I can manage the fleet and spend some time. The vehicles can spend some time charging. I don't worry about it. I have my fleet. I know how to manage it pretty well. So here I would like to let you sort of tie it into the smart mobility revolution, to the transportation as a service. what do you think the range question will look like in 3 or 5 years? Go ahead.
So with transportation as a service, we expect higher asset utilization of the vehicles. So a car, I think, is used something like 2% of the time. So with shared mobility, that percent will increase dramatically, and it will create greater demand on the vehicle. So with that, I think the durability and the total cost of ownership factors will change. And I think these vehicles may need to look totally different than they do today, so that they can run all day long and be efficient and affordable. And I believe that'll bring new factors to the technology equation. What we have to recognize is that with electrification, the equipment is simplified dramatically, and the barriers to entry are also lowered as a consequence. So we're going to see new options from the technology as a result. We don't have to build giant engine factories anymore. We can assemble all the motors and the batteries and the fuel cells, and this will create a tremendous boom of innovation where all these options can be evaluated, and then over time they will rise to the surface in terms of what's the best approach. So we're very excited by the future, and we do see that with increasing use of these vehicles through shared mobility, it'll create new demands for even longer durability and longer range requirements that can be served by the emerging technologies in battery and fuel cells.
So basically, you think that for the mobility as a service, then it'll increase the advantages of the fuel cells, you say?
Yes, yes, I do. Absolutely.
Exactly. Okay, Mohan.
I agree, it's exciting, and I think that for shared mobility and new forms of specifically urban mobility, the question is going to change from range to availability. And our target is to enable the vehicle to be always available as part of a fleet for B2B applications, for delivery applications, for different types of services, and also for shared mobility. I think it's not going to be so much the matter of range, especially for light vehicle, but the matter of for how long does the vehicle have to be stopped for charging. And with new innovative solutions for charging and for swappable and replaceable batteries, we can change the situation.
Are you also saying that if the fleet, we can buy, if each vehicle is going to be a lot cheaper, then we can own a larger fleet, and then maybe the range is not going to be as important?
We're already seeing platforms where the energy source can be taken out of the vehicle or can be broken into pieces, and then there are so many new options how to charge and when and what to do when the vehicle is being charged or driving with a partial energy source. So I think, it's going to be much more, the problem is going to be shifted to the management, or to the smart management of the battery. And we already see quite a lot of work done in this area, how to manage the source of energy in a smarter way.
Thanks. Hans, you?
I think that if we look at the case of the transportation of goods, logistics, I think that the data management with some harmonized smart management of logistics can significantly improve the CO2 reduction, because we have plenty of trucks running empty for 40% or 30% of the time. So the data management with the more harmonized logistic approach could enable to run the trucks most of the time with the payload close to 100%. And that will for sure could for sure improve significantly with one step the CO2 reduction given from the truck transportation.
So we have 2-1 as the management issue versus the range issue. Okay. Another vote, Hans?
I think if we're discussing about range, then the real issue with range is the inconvenience that it's causing. So if you ask a normal person here in a crowd what he thinks about electrical vehicles, most of the time they will respond with, I don't like the fact that I need to charge that often, and when I'm charging that I need to wait that long. So I think it's up to the industry to come up with solutions that reduce this inconvenience as much as possible. And maybe things like smart mobility or reduced charging times or different solutions like the fuel cell or charging via the road are all solutions that are contributing to bringing this inconvenience down. And in the end, to me, it doesn't really matter which is the winning one, but the inconvenience has to be reduced to an acceptable value.
Thanks, Lorenzo. You wanted?
Yeah, I believe that comparing the two experience of a conventional vehicle on the gas station and electric vehicles, whatever it is, the technology, may be misleading because let me say that the electric vehicles is also part of a wider ecosystem that is electrical grids. And Rob said great truth because the for very short percentage of the time the vehicles are used. The rest of the time is just occupying space. And what I believe that, for example, in the user experience can have also an impact, and also in the management of the solution, is that electric vehicles can participate to increase the integration of renewables. Of course, vehicle to grid is something that is becoming always more popular. We are doing in some countries also with successful, and I believe that this is the key. So the management of electric vehicles and shared electric vehicles, because of course when it's shared, I believe that you have to take care more on the availability more than the state of charge of the battery, because you know that even if you believe that you don't have enough kilometers over there, you have enough kilometers in another vehicle, and this reduces this range anxiety. At the same time, the fleet manager could benefit also decreasing the total cost of ownership, letting the vehicles participate to the flexibility program, and enabling also some other services. So we are using also the vehicles in another way, and this is one of the pillars of circular economy that we should take care of also.
Good, thank you all. I think we will conclude in this. I think to foresee the future is very difficult, so we will see what, maybe in a couple of years, if what we said has any meaning, or we can ask the question again and get completely different answers. Thank you, everyone here.
Thank you very much.